I think there is one simple question that you really want to know the answer to. What is a better deal? The M2 MacBook Air or a brand new M2 Pro MacBook Pro? Choosing the right machine is by no means easy. First, let me clarify one important point. These are two laptops from different categories and they are priced accordingly. The MacBook Air is marketed as an entry-level laptop for students, and MacBook Pro is marketed as a professional tool. However, they both are operating slightly outside their leagues. MacBook Air turned out to be quite capable even in some professional tasks, while the new MacBook Pro became worse in pro tasks. So comparing these laptops is very much relevant and important. They simply overlap too much. Another thing that makes this comparison interesting is the price. The new MacBook Air is sold for $1199 and a refurbished one for $1080. The MacBook Pro starts at $2,000, and you may be surprised to see the difference this extra $1,000 makes. Okay, now we can actually start comparing the two. Design-wise, they're very similar. Both are very boxy, very squarish, very industrial. The MacBook Air is noticeably thinner and lighter than the MacBook Pro, but the difference isn't astronomical. Both laptops are very comparable in size and dimensions. I do really like this design. It radiates confidence and utility, which is great. Big palm rest, huge trackpad, almost identical on these two. Yet I must say, for me, typing on Air is slightly more comfortable. Thanks to a thinner body, the hands are not as elevated from the table. This means the sharp edges of the body cut hands much less, and the blood circulation is also slightly better. If you need a machine for typing, then you need to get a wedge-shaped MacBook Air with an M1 chip. But enough about that. What about the displays? Display is probably the biggest noticeable difference between the two. Despite being roughly the same size, these are two completely different panels. MacBook Air has a 13.6-inch liquid retina screen with 60 Hz refresh rate and 500 nits of peak brightness. MacBook Pro, on the other hand, has a phenomenal display. Its mini LED screen that goes up to 1000 nits in brightness and supports promotion. It is fair to say that the screen on MacBook Pro is 2 times better than on Air. The biggest difference for me, without a doubt, is the ProMotion. It just makes everything so much better. Animations become much smoother and look faster. If you have never used ProMotion, it's something else entirely. Plus, the mini LED in a Pro MacBook is much better both for working with colors or casual movie watching. If you want to Netflix and chill with ultimate comfort, the MacBook Pro is your guy. The colors are more vibrant and true to life. The blacks are darker and more real. On Air, all blacks are more gray, and watching movies on full brightness can be a little bit uncomfortable in dark environments. Another thing you instantly notice is the sound. On MacBook Pro, you instantly see the speaker grills aimed at you. On Air, they're hidden in the hole between the display and the body, where vents used to be. I can't say that I prefer either of these approaches. Both seem legit and nice in their own way. I like the sneaky approach to the design of the Air, and I like the straightforward, brutal approach of the Pro. If only there was a middle ground. As for the sound, it's respectable on both. The speakers on Air are noticeably quieter than on Pro, but the overall quality of sound is somewhat similar. But in 2023 models, Apple did an oopsie, and the speakers became worse. Now they're more mushy, less detailed, and sound flatter. So if you want a laptop with good speakers, choose neither one of these two. Opt for the 2021 models instead. Displays and speakers are very interesting to talk about, but you know what is even better? The webcam. I know it's not the most interesting thing in the world, but still, if we directly compare webcams, we'll see that on Pro the image looks slightly better. The amount of details is a tiny bit better, there's less noise, and the sound is slightly better. It's not a night and day difference, and if a webcam for you is a nice thing to have, then you'll be equally fine with both machines. The most important part of this comparison is the performance. How much faster is the M2 Pro? Well, by a lot. Our M2 MacBook Air is bone stock 8 CPU cores, 8 GPU cores, 8 gigs of RAM, and 256 gigs of SSD. MacBook Pro, on the other hand, has 10 CPU cores, 16 GPU cores, 16 gigs of RAM, and 512 SSD. Even on paper, the difference is significant. There's no point in looking at synthetic benchmarks to know that MacBook Pro just runs in circles around the Air when it comes to any performance-related tasks, but in real-life use cases, the difference may not be that big. When web browsing, both laptops perform really similar. Web pages load really fast on both, the scrolling works great, no lags or reloads. However, when you saturate your 8 gigs of memory on Air with open tabs, you start seeing reloads and small stutters. The amount of such things depends on the websites you open, but still. On MacBook Pro, you won't have such an issue. There's more memory. And the SSD is much faster, which means swap works noticeably better. But in small browsing sessions, you most likely won't see any difference between these two. But the differences appear as soon as you start doing something power-intensive. Video editing, for example, is much faster on the Pro. More cores, more memory, faster SSD, and better hardware decoders do their magic, and MacBook Pro finishes rendering noticeably faster than the Air. But that doesn't mean you can't edit videos on Air. You can, but the export times can be somewhat disappointing when compared to Pro. It's much better than on any Intel-based MacBook Air. But still, if you are considering buying a laptop for coding, don't buy the Air. The lack of a proper cooling system leads to heavy throttling, so if you want to work with heavy projects, compile them many times in a row. The Air isn't the best machine for it. Of course, on small projects the difference will be minimal, but still, the Pro is better for any performance-hungry task. This, of course, includes photo editing. If you're a photographer and need to export a bunch of heavy photos, Air isn't the one to buy. However, if you want to make a few quick edits during shooting, Air will do just fine. I can't say that Air is perfect for photo editing, but it does the job when you're not pushing it to its limits. If you can keep your load within the reasonable limits, Air can be a viable purchase. Overall, I would say that performance-wise, the MacBook Pro is a clear winner, and if you want a real powerhouse, you must buy Pro. As for the battery, both laptops are performing exceptionally well, far exceeding the needs of an average person. Air would even be better in some cases. Thanks to the low-powered M2 chip, when under load it drains much less juice. Pro, on the other hand, thanks to those coolers, can go full throttle all the time, which consequently leads to quicker battery drain. So if you're exporting heavy files 4 hours off the battery, the Air will last longer. But don't let that confuse you. On Pro, you will do the same things faster and have enough battery for casual YouTube watching or text typing. I would say that in terms of battery life, it's a draw. Another small thing that matters is the port selection. The MacBook Air has 2 Thunderbolt ports, a MagSafe for charging, and a headphone jack. MacBook Pro, on the other hand, has an additional Thunderbolt port, an SD card slot, and HDMI 2.1. MacBook Pro is obviously more versatile. With it, you mostly can live without dongles, while with Air, you constantly need one. I would say that the M2 Pro MacBook Pro is the best Mac to buy, but by saying that I am cutting out another MacBook. The Mac that I'm considering to be better than the M2 Pro MacBook Pro, the M1 Pro model. Yes, you heard me right. The 2021 model, in my opinion, is better. It has the same display, almost identical performance, faster SSD, better speakers, and it costs less. Apple sells it for a little over $1,500, and that's an absolute bargain. You can't beat the performance-to-dollar ratio of that thing. By purchasing the M1 Pro instead of these two, you'll get possibly the best MacBook of the decade for only a couple $100 more than the base MacBook Air. I think this is a far better deal. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and give a thumbs up.